Certain brilliance in the simplicity that we have demonstrated from Jim Harbaugh from time to time. He's right. And that's been one of the constant frustrations for many coaches and players since the NFL. And it happened October 17, 2010, when there were bang, 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 3 of the incidents of helmet-to-helmet collisions with defenseless receivers that caused the NFL to take this all much more seriously, to enforce the rule much more aggressively. And one of the things Rodney Harrison said that night on Football Night in America, the only way to truly enforce it is to suspend the players, that certain players like Rodney himself, while playing, would set money aside, budgeting for the inevitable fines for violating the NFL's safety rules. It's only when you remove the player from the locker room, take him from his team, keep his team from having his services, force him to let his teammates down, does the message get through. And this isn't a one-game suspension for a fluke hit. This is the NFL system of progressive discipline, like we see in many workplaces and educational institutions. You do something you shouldn't do, you get one level of punishment. If you keep doing it, same thing. Not anything worse, just the same thing. You get a higher level of punishment. You keep doing the same thing, it keeps going. This isn't one shot, oh no. This is, you have failed to comply with what we expect. And it's as simple as how you go into the tackle. And you know it when you see it. We've got the video of the hit from Derwin James on Pat Freiermuth, the Steelers tight end, from Sunday's game. You know it when you see it, and we've seen these hits over and over again. We know instinctively from watching football the past 14 years that that is a hit that you don't want to see. And I don't want to get this cobbled up with defenseless player, because remember, it was in 2018 the NFL implemented the rule that it is a violation to lower the helmet and make forcible contact with an opponent anywhere, in their helmet, in their shoulder pad, in their stomach, in their leg, in their foot. That's what he did. It's that old look from the 80s and 90s of using the helmet as a weapon. He didn't go in with his shoulder. Jim Harbaugh's points make a lot of sense, but do not let him gaslight you, folks. Derwin James went in with his helmet. And it's on the defensive player, the player who would dip that helmet. Just keep your helmet up. When you dip that helmet and you go forward, it doesn't matter where you hit the player. You make forcible contact with the opponent after you have lowered your helmet to do so. That is a violation. And it's the latest violation. 5 unnecessary roughness penalties in 18 games. Most in the NFL by a defender. Period. So you've got to comply. And if you don't, you suffer the consequences. Who was it last year? Kareem Jackson, suspended multiple times. If you can't comply with what the rules require, you will continue to be suspended. And if you can't or won't comply, it's time to get on with what Chuck Noll would refer to as your life's work, because football is not for you, because you're incapable of playing it within the confines of the NFL's expectations. It's no different than being too short, too skinny, too slow, too weak. If you're too aggressive, if you're too willing to put that helmet straight into an opponent, you're going to face the consequences. And that's just the way it is. I'm not agreeing with it. And look, the more the NFL obsesses over player safety, the more the NFL invites a competitor that would come in and dial the rule book back to 1980. And I'm still surprised that hasn't happened yet. With all the money that's out there, private equity this and Saudi public investment fund that, no one's going to be able to compete with the NFL on its own turf in the fall, unless somebody says we're throwing out all these rules and we're going to go back and play football the way it used to be played. And maybe that's where Derwin James should be playing. Because if you can't comply with the expectations of the NFL's rule book, you will be penalized and you will eventually be suspended. And we're seeing the various hits that got Derwin James flagged and or fined that resulted in. And there it is. Now, that one, see, he lowered the helmet. I don't know how forcible the contact was, but The one that happened on Sunday, the one that was the tip of the iceberg or the straw that broke the camel's back, or insert reference from Aesop's fable to fit the circumstances, or fables as the case may be. Now, that's a hit on a defensive player. It doesn't matter that it wasn't with the helmet. It's to the helmet. That's the thing to remember. For a defenseless receiver, you can't hit him with your helmet or in the helmet, or basically head and neck area. But at no time on the field since 2018 can you dip the helmet and make forcible contact with that helmet on an opponent. That's a rule that it doesn't get flagged as much as it should in real time, but you get fined for it, and if you get fined enough, you eventually will be suspended by the National Football League. And when Derwin James returns in Week 5, if he does it again, he'll be suspended again. And the next time, it'll be 2 games. And then it may be 4 games. So the important point there, now, look, maybe Jim Harbaugh is saying different things behind the scenes to Derwin James, and he's saying publicly. But if you want your player to be available, you better accept what the NFL is telling you. You better understand what the NFL is saying, and you better coach your guy up to comply, or you won't have him. It's that simple. So, Jim, look, great points, although it was a little gaslighty. At the same time, when it's time to talk to Derwin James, you better make sure he gets it, or you're not going to have him. It's that simple. It's that simple. And I've said, and this dates back to the time before Mike Tomlin had his epiphany that he better get his guys to play the right way. I remember, like, big hits from Ryan Clark. He'd get fined $40,000, and Clark would say publicly, I was praised in the film room for that. Well, why were you praised in the film room for it if the NFL fines you for it? The coaches at some point need to be fined if their players are doing it. The organization needs to be fined because at some level, the organization is either prompting it or enabling it. And that's my concern with what Harbaugh said. It enables conduct that violates the rules. And at some level, there needs to be a consequence for the coach and or the organization that is allowing it. Okay. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.